Chapter 11 is really a fun chapter because we get to use all these different methods to try to figure out if we should accept or reject a project. So the main learning objectives for you guys for this chapter is to discuss capital budgeting, for you to calculate and use NPV, IRR, MIRR, and payback period, and for you to be able to explain why NPV is the best method and how it overcomes problems that are inherent in the other methods. So, capital budgeting is the process of analyzing additions to fixed assets. Capital budgeting is important because more than anything else, fixed asset investment decisions determine a company's course for the future. Conceptually, the capital budgeting process is the same as the decision process used by individuals when making investment decisions. The steps that are involved are: 1, you want to estimate the cash flows. Interest and maturity value are dividends in the case of bonds and stocks. Operating cash flows if you're talking about capital projects, like we would in this chapter. The second step would be to assess the riskiness of the cash flows. The third step is determine the appropriate discount rate based on the riskiness of the cash flows and the general level of interest rates. This is called the project cost of capital in capital budgeting. The fourth step is find the present value of the expected cash flows and/or the asset's rate of return. And the fifth step is if the present value of the inflows is greater than the present value of the outflows, which means that the net present value is positive, or if the calculated rate of return, the IRR, is higher than the project cost of capital, you should accept the project. Step 1 is what we do in Chapter 12, so we haven't done this before. Step 2 is also in Chapter 12. Step 3 is what we just did in Chapter 10, find the weighted average cost of capital. Step 4 and Step 5 are what we learn how to do in this chapter, Chapter 11. Okay, so now we have to distinguish between independent and mutually exclusive projects. So independent projects are where the cash flows of one project don't affect the acceptance or rejectance of the other project. And then a project is mutually exclusive if when you accept one project, you have to reject the other one. So an example of independent projects would be if you're looking at investing in a new accounting system and a new piece of machinery to make toys that your company makes. If you accept one, the other one should not be affected. You could accept both if you have enough money and they both generate a positive net present value. Now for mutually exclusive projects, an example would be you're choosing between two accounting systems. So if you accept one accounting system for your firm, you can't accept the other one. Or you could be needing to either transport materials and you need to either use a boat of some type or you could build a bridge. If you accept one, you're not going to do the other one. And this makes a difference a little bit later on when we're talking about different projects. So now we have normal and non-normal cash flow streams. So, and that sounds kind of strange, but the normal cash flow stream is where you have a cost, because usually projects have an initial startup cost, and they're followed by a series of positive cash inflows for the company. And basically, the main point here is that you have one change in sign, from negative to positive. Now, non-normal cash flow stream is where you have like a negative cost, then a positive cash flow, then a negative cash flow, then a positive cash flow. So you have two or more changes in signs. Sometimes you could have a negative cash flow at the beginning and at the very end. And a negative cash flow at the end, these are some examples of that. Like if you had a nuclear power plant or a strip mine and you had costs to help restore the environment to its original condition.